The rain had been coming down for hours, gentle yet unceasing, cleansing the glass facades of the towering structure where emotions often ran colder than the metal framework surrounding them. Within, below gleaming marble flooring and hushed elevator shafts, a man guided a cleaning cart along the deserted corridor. His work attire was faded, his footwear threadbare, yet his gaze carried an unspoken resilience. He went by the name Aaron Blake, and though most individuals scarcely acknowledged his presence, he observed everything. The weariness etched in others, the rushed movements, the isolation concealed beneath achievement. What nobody understood, not even those in accounting, was that each month half of Aaron's humble earnings disappeared into sealed envelopes addressed to an orphanage on the other side of town. This wasn't some tax write-off or publicity gesture. This was his vow to the youngsters he once considered his own kin. If you hold that compassion still holds value, that individuals can elevate themselves through empathy and dignity, then take a moment, comment, share, and subscribe to Untold Stories 0.4, because narratives such as this remind us why the most humble souls frequently possess the greatest fortitude. Aaron was raising alone a young daughter named Maya, a radiant 7-year-old with spiraling locks and a grin that could eclipse the sunrise itself. His entire existence centered on her, preparing her meals before daybreak, escorting her to school, then boarding the bus to the imposing glass tower where he sanitized offices that reeked of affluence and drive. He harbored no grievances, no second thoughts. Whenever Maya questioned, "Daddy, why do you send money to those children when we don't have much?" he would grin and reply, "Because once someone did that for me." The orphanage he contributed to had rescued him as a child, nourished him when nobody else would, and granted him the determination to someday create a life worth cherishing. Now, even when he could scarcely afford replacement footwear, he honored his commitment. At the summit of that very structure, Evelyn Carter, the CEO, inhabited a reality of contradictions. Her reputation commanded respect, formidable, refined, and frequently intimidating. She had constructed her domain through exactness and intelligence. But somewhere during that journey, empathy had transformed into figures and humanity into tactics. To the majority of staff members, she was unreachable, moving through conference rooms with a stare piercing enough to slice silence cleanly. Yet beyond that glass executive door, she was tormented by the void that achievement hadn't satisfied. Her fortune couldn't purchase the singular thing she'd surrendered years earlier, her feeling of connection. Their separate realities intersected one overcast morning when Evelyn appeared uncommonly early. The structure was still except for the distant sound of a vacuum cleaner resonating through the corridor. As she rounded the corner, she observed Aaron crouched beside the reception space, carefully removing a coffee mark someone had abandoned. There was something in his concentration, the tranquility in his actions that caused her to pause. She registered his fatigued gaze, the subtle unevenness in his stride, and the photograph of a young girl affixed within his cart. During the subsequent weeks, she discovered herself encountering him with increasing frequency. Not deliberately, she assured herself. But intrigue possessed an unusual magnetism. One evening, while departing, she witnessed him positioned outside the security station, delivering an envelope to a nun. He inclined his head slightly, self-conscious, as the nun expressed gratitude. Evelyn's forehead creased. It wasn't payday. Why was a custodian distributing money? Subsequently, her intrigue evolved into discreet examination. She requested her assistant retrieve the janitorial compensation documentation, something she'd never pursued previously. When the analysis materialized, she was astonished. Aaron's wages were minimal. Yet, every single month, a substantial fraction of it was absent, transferred directly to a neighborhood orphanage. The assistant clarified that Aaron had established an automated arrangement years prior, never disclosing it to anyone. Evelyn found it incomprehensible. Half his earnings, gone, voluntarily. She studied the document, an unfamiliar weight settling upon her chest. That evening, she couldn't dismiss the revelation. While she consumed her imported coffee in her penthouse surveying the cityscape, she envisioned Aaron's exhausted hands in her thoughts, cleaning surfaces so those youngsters could be fed. The disparity struck her more forcefully than any corporate setback ever had. She, who possessed everything, had abandoned the practice of giving. He, who possessed nothing, contributed everything within his means. The following morning, Evelyn traveled across town to locate the orphanage documented in Aaron's files. It wasn't an impressive establishment, merely a modest structure with flaking paint, children's laughter spilling through the gaps of weathered windows. The nun she encountered was the identical one Aaron had presented the envelope to. "Ah, Mr. Blake," the sister remarked affectionately. "He's been assisting us for years. Always arrives discreetly, never requests anything. Says it's his method of expressing gratitude to God for granting him another opportunity." Evelyn felt her throat constrict. For the first time in years, she couldn't suppress her tears. Returning to the office, she summoned Aaron inside. He appeared anxious, gripping his cap, convinced he'd committed some error. She regarded him for an extended period before articulating. "Why do you do it?" she finally inquired gently. Aaron paused, uncertain whether he should respond. Then quietly, he stated, "Because I understand what it's like to be starving, ma'am. Because I cannot erase the expressions of the kids who are still awaiting assistance. And because my little girl should mature understanding that kindness signifies more than convenience." Evelyn felt something transform deep within her. That night, she returned home and examined her own image. The woman who had dominated the corporate world yet somehow relinquished connection with her compassion. She concluded it was time to alter that. The subsequent week, Evelyn unveiled a new foundation under the corporation's identity, one that would assist disadvantaged children and single parents laboring hard to endure. She christened it the Blake Promise Fund. When the announcement reached Aaron, he was incredulous. His hands shook as Evelyn approached him during a company assembly, acknowledging him publicly for reminding her and everyone what genuine prosperity represented. But it didn't conclude there. Evelyn personally returned to the orphanage again, delivering provisions, financing renovations, and guaranteeing the children received new garments and nourishment for the year. When she entered that modest room brimming with joy and illumination, she found Aaron already present, sweeping the surface as usual. She smiled and declared, "You've accomplished more for this world than you'll ever realize." He smiled back timidly and murmured, "We just do what we can, ma'am." From that moment, Evelyn transformed how she directed, not merely as a CEO, but as a person. She devoted more time listening, more time assisting, more time experiencing. And every time she encountered Aaron in the corridor, she didn't simply see a custodian. She recognized a mentor, a testament that compassion is the most authentic expression of leadership. If this story moved your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Untold Stories 0.4. Your support assists in spreading genuine stories of love, redemption, and humanity in a world that urgently requires them.